What's up, Warriors fans, and welcome back to Warriors Latest. As always, I'm your host, Max Arizin. A big shout out to all you guys for tuning in, liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell, as I do post new Warriors videos daily, and it does help the channel continue to grow as the season moves along. Now, after this weekend, I gotta say, I'm still very frustrated with this Warriors team because, look, we're talking a lot about what's going to happen next season. They're talking about it being a gap year. We're seeing what the players that they're going after. I think Brandon Williams was one of them. Georges Niang was the other, and they're not. I get that they're not making. They're not making big moves because they struck out on Kevin Durant. They struck out on LeBron James. They couldn't get really any help for Steph. They didn't even have the opportunity to go after Giannis after striking out on him back in February. And I got to say, this focus on running it back is extremely frustrating. Because if you run it back and nothing changes and you miss the playoffs, where's that going to leave you next summer? How are you supposed to attract stars to this Warriors team? Yes, you might have a lot of cap space. Yes, you may have Steph and Draymond potentially coming back because I don't know how that's going to respond after a horrendous year, but they're also going to be older. Yes, you do have young, great players like Will Richard, like Yaxel Lenborg. Yes, you have Bajemski, but you got to figure out, are you going to keep him or are you going to let him move on in, say, a sign and trade or something like that? There's a lot of things that could potentially happen that, you're really betting on a team that isn't exactly complete. Yes, you do potentially have a healthy Kristaps Porzingis, but for how long? We honestly don't know. He hasn't had a good, healthy season since the Celtics won the championship with him in 2024. And that's concerning for me because it says I don't know what I'm doing if I'm a front office guy. It says Mike Dunleavy's expecting different results, putting out the same tests. And nothing's going to change. We don't know if Steph's runner's knee is going to come back hard to haunt him. Does he play 50 games? Does he play 65 games? Does he play more? We don't know. But really gambling on a 38-year-old is not the best idea. And we haven't really heard news that reinforcements are on their way. The biggest news we hear pretty much is with Moody and Butler talking about how, okay, the recovery's going great. They are going to be back this season, obviously, but the fact remains they're not going to move the needle to the point to where the Warriors need it. Now, if Butler does come back, maybe they go on a late season run similar to what happened when they acquired him back in February of 2025. Now, maybe that happens, but I'm just not sold. Because, Butler is older. He's coming back from one of the worst injuries you can have as a basketball player with that torn ACL. And what are you going to get? What Butler are we getting back? Are we going to get the guy that helped this team really lead the Warriors to a top-tier play-in seed that ended up beating the number 2 Houston Rockets? Or are we getting a shell of himself? This is the problem I have with this. If you're running it back, you at least got to have these reinforcements. And look, they may come back strong, but it's still going to be too late because of how little the Warriors have going into the season. They could sign Brandon Williams. They could sign Georges Niang. It's not going to help them unless Will Richard and Yaxel Lenborg have these, let's call it blow-up seasons. I don't know what's going to happen. The Warriors need to do more and just find ways to make things interesting because you know what? Making things interesting says, hey, that's a team that I'd like to go to try and win an NBA championship. And that's specifically focusing on the summer. You look at the guys who are going to be free agents. We talk about Kawhi, we talk about Giannis, we talk about Joker. Kevin Durant has sort of moved himself off that conversation after his Sixers 2017 Warriors comments. So I wouldn't want to see him back in the blue and gold anytime ever. So I don't want to see that happening. But just focusing on these injured players as your primary source of news or any information, I get that it's late August. Things are slow. That's what's supposed to happen. Late August is that time where we don't know maybe there's a signing or two, but they're not really significant signings. But nothing happens. But the Warriors need to make something happen because, yes, the main news may be, okay, Moody may come back ahead of schedule. Okay, ahead of schedule, late November. Still not exactly helping the Warriors out if you're coming back after Thanksgiving. Jimmy Butler, I mean, even if he does find a way to get fully healed, you're not seeing him, like if he's ahead of schedule, you're not seeing him until January at the earliest. And that doesn't help the Warriors. And we don't know how he's going to come back because you know what? He could come back and just like not lose 2 or 3 steps, and you know what? That's dead in the water for the Warriors. That's an albatross contract. You now have to find a way to move before the deadline or just let expire after the season's over. But the most important part about all of this is like the lack of action, the lack of just running it back, missing on LeBron, missing on Giannis, is how Steph is taking this. Because I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't think Steph is taking this well. And that's like he's a very positive player. He's a very positive mindset kind of guy, and that's good. That's the kind of leader you want on your team. But he's going to be a free agent next season. And if the Warriors continue to do nothing and don't find ways to improve, like the thought's been creeping in my head. Maybe, like, yes, I get he wants to be a Warrior lifer, but maybe he goes somewhere else. Maybe he says, you know what? The Warriors continue to swing and miss. They're trying. I get that. But they need to go in a different direction, and I need to go in a different direction. And if that happens, I think it would happen via trade. But I don't know. Like, that's the frustrating part, is I don't think he'll force his way out of Golden State. I think he'd just straight up walk. And if he walks, the Warriors will lose him for nothing. And if they lose him for nothing, I mean, they're left dead in the water. Yes, they do have a lot of cap space, but they have nothing to work with. They have first-round picks, but they could have gotten even more first-round picks had they traded Steph before he decides to walk. But you never really know where Steph's head's at. He never interferes with management. He never really just asks the team to acquire certain players. So it's really curious to see how things can pan out for this Warriors team. But again, running back may not be the best option because again, you're doing it to keep Steph happy. Steph, again, expiring deal, needs to find a way to help this Warriors team, but he cannot. He's too old to really shoulder the entire scoring load for this team. I mean, the Warriors have to do something in order to be competitive. They can't just gap year this completely and expect Steph to stay happy. Because again, Steph next summer, he's in the driver's seat when it comes to his future. He could re-sign with the Warriors. He could retire, which I find highly unlikely. Or he could sign elsewhere. And if he signs elsewhere, the Warriors are screwed. So again, the bottom line is the Warriors need to make things interesting. There are a lot of guys out there that they could go after. One guy I've actually heard a lot about, at least recently since he's made his decision to return to the league, is Ben Simmons. Now, look, I don't know where he's at mentally. Maybe he needed to decompress after becoming a professional fisher. Weird. But maybe that's really helped him mellow out after what happened a few years back with that free throw. Now, he's one guy that makes this interesting because, again, he can guard all positions. And yes, he may be a little rusty, but he's worth a training camp deal. And so we've heard that a Western Conference team has already offered him a training camp deal. And it's very big. There's a very big possibility that it is the Warriors. And if it was the Warriors, I say go for it. And aside from that, they need to make other kinds of deals to at least make things interesting or at least open things up for this Warriors team. Like, again, I mentioned Klay Thompson, expiring deal. It solves two problems the Warriors are going to run into this season, with Moses Moody being injured and dealing with that potential Brandon Pajemski extension that they're going to have to face, whether it be sometime during this up until late October or next offseason when he becomes a restricted free agent. But dealing with this now is probably the best way to at least prepare yourself for possible bad outcomes in the future. And should Steph be a part of those bad outcomes, you at least want to see this team prepared. Now, that's all we have today for Warriors Latest. As always, a big thanks to you guys for tuning in, liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell. And if you have any good buy low signings that the Warriors should make, feel free to comment below, as I love hearing your ideas. And as always, go Dubs.